Game Store Life, Episode 1, Take 97. we're going to try this again. No, that's all joking aside. So we're going to, I don't know what this quote podcast will evolve into, but we're going to start by, I guess, explaining game stores and how they work, and if you want to open one and take that risk, what you shouldn't do, look out for. So I'm Dan. I run, obviously, the store on the mat that you're staring at. And then I have with me this gentleman who will introduce himself.
Yeah, my name's Alex. I had 14 video game Magic Pokemon stores out in Oregon and Washington. And I had 2 partners with that, did that for 8 years. Before that, I was the Vice President of Product and Marketing for Play and Trade. And then before that, I was both a district manager and the manager of replenishment for Game Crazy. And so basically, I've been in the video game business and retail business for 30 plus years. And now trying to put some of that knowledge into you guys.
Hey, I'm TJ, your typical millennial kid. I grew up in a game store. My uncle owned one, and I've loved them ever since. I started working for this Dan guy here last couple of years, and just been sticking around learning what I can.
Okay, I guess to add on to mine, we currently have 2 stores. We had 3, but that's a whole other story. And then I owned a small chain of 3 others back in North Carolina in 2008, 2012. So that's my claim to fame, which is, minimal.
So Dan, when it comes down to opening a store, what is your number 1 recommendation?
Don't. I guess we'll just go over the adages. The only way to make a small fortune in a game store is to start with a large one. And then it just comes down to mentality, because if you have the drive to open your own business, and you have an idea what to do, there's far more lucrative industries to get into.
Yes, yeah. But are they as much fun, being in a game store?
I think that comes down to what you're... anything can be fun if that's your thing. Like, you could be a gardener, you open your own, flower shop, and you're having fun. But because like my first set of stores, it was fun for like the first 6 months. Then it became a grind. Then it became
right.
Long term. I think the best that you can hope for is you wake up in the morning and you're going to run your business, and you're like, meh. You don't hate it. You don't have to love it, but you don't want to hate it. But that's true with any job.
Yeah, I got 8 years in, and I loved going to work every day. I worked for some amazing people with Game Crazy, with Play and Trade, with GameStar. I've never truly worked a day in my life. I've played video games for a living for 30 years, for all intents and purposes. Right. So you just getting it. So what are the 3 main kind of people that are going to go out there and try to open a game store? What would you say those are?
Well, I'd roll with, there's 4 types.
Okay.
The first, the main one, the preferred one being a person who enjoys games that wants a business.
Right.
Then, let's get the big cat out of the bag. Nobody knows. We're in one of those smaller industries where it's not like somebody from Pew Research or Harvard ran out with a survey and interviewed all these people. But by most metrics, most game stores will fail within 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
Anywhere from
most small businesses.
Well, the last I heard, most small businesses were around the 50-60% mark. Where game stores, you're probably looking at 70-80%. For whatever reason.
Well, why did your second store close?
You mean my original
stores?
Yeah,
the original stores.
That was a partner thing?
Well, no. The store... So you used to have 3, now you have 2. Okay. Why did that store close?
The market... the market we were in didn't really... wanted, even though, and I mean, this is the loosest terms imaginable. We surveyed the market, and we had because the same thing we did for our second store. We asked around, try to get a feel from the community. Hey, do you want a game store? And the response for our third store in that community was over twice what it was in our second store, which was and still is doing really well. So we're like, let's go do it. But I also didn't. I mean, I think that's more of a question of when you have an established business and you want to expand. Because that's a little different scenario, because I spent 3 months building up to that, so I didn't have to, just jump in. But the point is we thought there was a demand. We did the research that helped solidify that point, and then it just didn't end up panning out. But as far as opening, like your first store, if you want to open a business and you enjoy games, you know what you're doing, go for it. But again, most of this is speculation, just talking to the store owners. The main reasons game stores will close is they're ran by, gamers, which
Right.
isn't bad, but with gamer mentality, and that can be broken down in a couple of different categories. You got the gamers that are like, oh, hey man, I can get, let's say they're selling Magic, right? They're like, hey, I can get this Magic at cost. They're used to going down to the store, Amazon, who cares where they go? Like, I'm getting a box for $120. Now I can get it at cost. And, Magic comes in, they're like, oh, I'm going to take it from you. And then they're essentially taking, if not stealing, money from the business. Because that box of Magic, whatever you paid for it wholesale, anything you sell it for, that money goes back in the business. So I think the first mindset is people view it as their own piggy bank, but for product. And then they, which again, that's one of the perks I have in a business, but they do not reimburse the business because they can't.
They can't separate the two.
Right. They can't tell the difference between their money and the business money.
Right.
Once that money, however you get it, friends, family, bank loan, mortgage on your house, who cares, hits that bank account for that business, it is no longer yours.
Right.
Without some paperwork. As in, I paid myself a salary. You can get a W-2 yourself, or, do a income thing depending on your organizational structure, all that bull stuff. But like, this Magic Pack is the store's.
Right.
If you want it, you have to pay for it. Now, yes, you can pay less for it because you own the place, but your store cannot lose money because of your hobbies.
Right. So what's the second guy that's going to open a store?
We'll say the collectors, because okay, we're talking about just taking the product, but if you open, I'm going to open 100 of these. And again, and this is more stuff we'll cover later. You open a box of cards, there's going to be an expected value of the singles in it. Let's say you spend $100 on a box, and you're like, well, this set, it's got about $150, $160 value if I crack the box. But that's because every box has a chase card. You crack the box, and there's a $100 card. You're like, oh, I'm going to take that card. Because you want it for your collection. Well, all right. Well, now the rest of those cards aren't going to replace even the cost of the box alone to make you profit. So you're like, there again, you just took money from the store. Now, if you want to pay the store for that card, go ahead and throw it in your binder. But that leads to other issues that we'll hopefully cover later.
Yeah, and your binder, people have to understand your binder on those is what's in the store. If you own the store, that's your binder. It's not the actual binder you carry around. So what's the third type of owner?
The clubhouse mentality. I want a place for my buddies to come play cards or board game. Insert hobby here. And then I've seen gaming clubs that do this, and they can do it. It's one of those things, like all three of these groups, gamers, collectors, groups that play in a clubhouse, they can be done, but the line between it sustaining itself and falling flat on its face is so slim.
And being really successful is probably not going to be
right. Like if you're just, start a gaming club. It's more of a co-op.
Right.
You can have a couple cases up front, sell some stuff, but you're like, oh, I got a bunch of buddies that pay it. Because if you run a store with a clubhouse mentality, you have a real big risk of keeping people away that you normally would sustain your business. You know,
Right.
you need Grandma to come in and buy Timmy a couple packs of Magic as stocking stuffers.
Right.
If Timmy comes into play and you're like, well, you're just a noob and we're all good Magic players and blah blah blah, and you're gonna chase them away. They're like, I don't know, that guy's a dick. I'm not
You want a
gonna play.
gamers club? Open, put some tables in your garage.
Right.
I mean, that's really so. What is the fourth and probably the most successful group of the bunch?
Yeah, the person with I'm not even gonna say a mind for business, but someone with a mentality of, I want to make money doing this.
Right.
Which, if you can, there's a lot to that. I mean, you could already be experienced, you could already, have some knowledge of business, or you'd just be eager to learn. Because the learning curve in this business, I'm going to dare say it, it's probably one of the steepest learning curves of almost any business. Because, example, you want to be a mechanic. Yeah, the different models, makes, manufacturers have a lot of different things, but when you know the basics of engine repair, you can generally apply that to everything else. But in this one, you're like, oh, I'm a Magic fan, fine. Oh, here's Digimon. You have no idea.
I think it's retail in general is really hard to do because you've got to understand demand, you've got to understand costs, you've got so much writing on what you're going to bring in compared to what you're taking out, the margins that are in between.
Well, that's true, but let's say I'm running a furniture store, and I have 6 different couches and 5 different manufacturers. Well, a couch is a couch. Once I know the fundamentals of one, just an example.
I understand that, but if you're bringing in, yellow, kind of plaid couches, and this time of year, it's green velour is what's in. You're not going to be selling that stuff. I think retail in general is extremely difficult to get into because you've got to judge demand, and that goes for any retail.
Well, yes, but I guess the point I'm making there is, somebody wants a couch. You know about couches, but and it also comes down to what you want to do. Like, I've got the Pokemon. I got the big 3 here: Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. If like your old stores, you didn't have really play space in all the stores. If you're just looking to sell them, fine, okay, I know the difference. But let's say you want to run events, and somebody comes in, hey, which game is the funnest to play? Now you got to know what these products are, all the different types of products for each, and then you got to know how they play.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, if you're doing singles, like I guess the point is, if I'm running a kiosk in the mall in the middle somewhere with a little, those little carts, I can just put these up and sell them. But if I'm running play space, now I got to know how to play the games. If I'm selling singles, now I got to know what the singles are worth. And every 3 months, you're getting 120 cards, 350 cards, another 200 cards. That's a mass amount of information to take in every 3 months just on these 3 games alone.
Right.
So when I say the learning curve, and this is in addition to basic business, so it's like, so you have to be really committed.
So I am a Magic, and I'm just going to use Magic because it's the game I play the most. I'm a Magic nerd, and I want to open my own game store. What are the things that? How do I become? How do I get more information so that I can actually open?
Troll TCG player for one. Which is honestly, or eBay or other markets, you want to get an idea of the value of things.
Okay.
Because like you said, retail in general, like, hey, I can sell tables and chairs, but I need to know the value of things. That's fine. But here's the additional fact, like, somehow if you manage to pull off a Magic only store. Okay, I know what my Magic cards are worth, I know what the pack sells for, I know what the blah blah blah. Now I have to ascertain, well, if I want to do singles, then this is why value is so important. What are the pull rates? Like, if I open a box of cards, how many mythics, rares, commons, uncommons I'm going to get? Because if I want to sell those singles, You know what? I could have the price guide memorized from the tokens all the way up to the foil mythic alternate art extended showcase foils.
Right.
But if I don't know how many of those I'm going to get for cracking those boxes, might not be worth it. Unless your whole business model is I'm just going to buy the singles from people, but that's what you need to know. And again, this is just one game.
But my store isn't even open yet. So how do I get to that point? How do I get to the point where I've made a decision. I am a collector, and I was a store manager at GameStop. So I know people. I know how to run a store.
Okay, and those are good traits. Well, first how are you gonna fund it?
Okay,
There's your first shtick.
How do I know how much I need?
Okay, how many atoms in the air you just breathed? And this comes into the big thing. Topics we'll cover later, of course, but in general, you need your setup costs. Okay, how much? And this comes into like how much space do I want? Do I want a play space? How much retail space? Do I need an office? Do I need a storeroom? You know, let's just say 1,500 square foot. That seems to be 1,500 square foot seems to be a decent size first shop for a lot of people. Okay, what do I want to put in there? Do I want to go fancy with tables and chairs? Do I just get the stuff I can grab at Sam's Club for like $40, $50 a table? Do I want 6-foot tables, 8-foot? You know, figure out your fixture costs. And then a lot of stuff. So depending on your market, I mean, most important, operating expenses. I would recommend at least having 6 months of operating expenses in reserve.
Absolutely.
Minimum. So, okay. Now, when you figure all that out, because the last thing you should figure out is how much inventory you're going to buy.
Right.
Because the first thing you got to figure out is, you know, what is my store going to look like? You know, what kind of displays? Because, like, okay, I'm going to be heavy in the singles. Okay, you're probably going to want a lot of glass display cases, as opposed to, yeah, I'm going to do singles, but I want to list them online. Therefore, I'm just going to have a computer out front with a kiosk people can order from. Okay, now you have singles, but you don't have to display them. Blah. Or I'm just going to do sealed products. So, and the difference there is, you know, if you're just going to have like a small counter with a cash register, as opposed to like I need 6 display cases, there's a huge cost difference in there.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and then figure out what your inventory is, you know, and then personally, I mean, I'm just gonna between 25, 50 grand to set up your store, and then between probably 50 and 100 for your inventory.
Right.
And that number is way big because you don't know until you get. Well, you have to do research.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So take a look at play spaces. Take a look at locations. Call realtors that have spaces for rent. Create a business plan of sorts. So you get everything written down, saying, "This is what I'm going to sell. These are going to be my the dollar amounts that I'm going to need. And even write out this is what I'm going to need to make on a daily basis to be able to just cover my bills." And so once you've kind of taken a shot at that, you're opening a new store and you're like, wow, I need to do $1,000 a day to cover all my bills. You're probably not going to make it, at least early on.
Right. So multiple factors. Just run on a list of what you shouldn't do. Like business plans are great, but I think one of the main things getting a business loan for this type of business is so difficult because nobody understands this business. It's not a traditional business. Well, like yours, you did video games. People can understand that. I mean, when you let me ask you this: how many furniture stores do you know they get a shipment of couches, take them home, sit on them, sleep on them, let the dogs lay on them, then bring them back in and sell them as used?
Yeah, nobody.
We are, to my knowledge, we are the only business that takes primary, brand new product and whose purpose is to instantly make them into used products.
Yeah.
Trying to explain that business model to a banker, someone who they might know what Pokemon is, but beyond the name, they have no clue. So that's I'm not saying it's impossible, but when you're like, most of my money is going to come from these secondary products that I created the primary products because that's my business model.
Right. Most of the time, you're not going to get bank loans
Right.
to do, to open a store. It's going to be personally financed. It's going to be, financed through family or friends or something along those lines. Honestly, is the first store. You do them really on the cheap. You find a cheap location. That's still going to be, but location's everything. It's still got to be accessible.
I hear that a lot, and I agree, but I disagree. Instead of location, I think it's location and a half. Because nerds will find you.
They'll find you, but if you're not in the right location, so.
No, yeah, like I don't want to be in that seedy part of town where, the questionable houses are up the road and all that. But
the funny thing for me in video games and for Magic, for us, I would prefer to be in the seedier parts of towns and the lower income, not necessarily lower income as much as the stores that failed for us were in really rich neighborhoods.
Too posh.
And very posh. So places that kids were not allowed to go during the weekdays because they had school or they had sports.
when I say location, I think what I mean is something that's easily accessible with ample parking.
Yes. Yes.
Like you don't need to rent the space out in front of the mall.
No. But if I could be in the parking lot of a Walmart, I'd be ecstatic.
But even that, I think, is too highbrow. Again,
And it is. The majority of the stores that I play in, and I play in multiple stores. You're not listening to this, but I've had to find, and I do. I have to. I mean, one of them doesn't have play space, so we have to play at a pizza place down the street. But if you're just walking by, the first time I walked into CCGPrime, it took me a little bit to find, but
there's a tree right in front of us.
yeah, once I found it, I walked in and I'm just like, oh, this is somewhere I can be at home playing, Magic as a nerd. I'm a 54-year-old nerd. I've been playing these games forever and a day, and I like the social interaction for these things, but trying to get the people that aren't nerds into your store to buy more board games, because mom isn't going to go looking for CCGPrime. Mom's going to go to Target. Mom's going to go to Walmart. Mom's going to go to Myers or somewhere that is not going to be the game store in town.
Right.
And so we need to be, we're on the main street of the cute little downtown of Ionia, Michigan.
But we're right next to the antique shops and the little boutiques.
Right.
So
And so moms go up and down the street and they can go, oh, I'm looking around. There is a board game, shop here. I'm going to step in and I'm going to take a look, because mom's the one that controls the money.
Oh yeah.
And when you're opening a location, it can't be so out of the way that mom's not going to drive by and see it.
Right, and I think that comes down to why I don't think location's as important as, you don't have to be in the main drag with a guy out front with a big wavy arm inflatable man spinning a sign.
It helps.
No, I'm saying, and these are things, it's this ain't Field of Dreams. You build it and they won't necessarily come. You need outreach. Now, whether that's, and hell, that could be a whole...
I learned that one with Portland here, and that right there really they killed us. And we did the outreach before we even opened the store.
And
Well, again, I'm not saying this is the key to success.
Yeah.
But, being involved in community, doing things, working with dumb stuff like local library, like the library, the location
Again-
they ran had D&D for kids.
right.
And we went to, hey, can we help sponsor this or give dice? And
Right.
they never reached back up.
Right, but location is going to be, you want something that's going to be seen from a main dragon town, and you just need that for. I think location's more important than you think it is, because stores that are a street back or something else, you're going to get your hardcore nerds. You're going to get your D&D guys. You're going to get your Magic guys, your Pokemon guys. You're not going to get mom. You're not going to get mom driving down the street who's going to say, oh, I should just stop in there and pick up.
Well, and again, and this is, like, we could sit here and talk specifics all day, but it's, game stores are like, like opinions like this, everybody's got. There's got a different one, because, again, we'll take Portland into account. It was literally next door to the theater, and they would have the community theater there. I went there one time, I forgot I was bringing some stuff. And they had the children's community play. There were literally 300 people out front, like kids, parents, and stuff, and like 4 of them walked in the. I mean, we're talking like 10 feet from entrance to entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So they saw us. They knew we were there. So we're kind of an afterthought. But at the same time, when I had my original stores in North Carolina, we were kind of the street behind, but the nerds just came in.
Right. I didn't. Every single one of my stores was on a main drag, and we had stores doing 1.3, 1.4 million a year, and we had enough to pay a manager $30,000 a year, plus have 3 to 4 other employees that were making 12 to 15 an hour.
So just out of curiosity, what was your highest? What was your money making category? I'm assuming video games.
For us, it was used games where it was our number one. Yeah.
But and again, I think video games have a larger market than the card games.
Yeah. Now.
I mean, obviously a higher profit because you're doing used.
We were also. For mom and pop video game stores, we were in the top 10 in the country for Magic purchases. I mean, we were purchasing, we were spending anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 per release for Magic in cards.
Now, is that just your primary distributor statistics, or I mean, you wouldn't have access to all of those 7 major distributors, I assume.
No, but we were direct with Wizards.
Oh, that's when they still sold. Okay.
Yeah, and so when we were buying these things, we were getting perks. We were invited up to Wizards. We were, we had a lot of little perks. I mean, we were buying a ton of Magic, and yes, we sold it online. We understood our business. So, when you're opening a store, no matter what kind of store you're going to open, you got to understand what your business is. And so you also have to understand business. You have to understand that you're going to have to pay taxes. You're going to need to get a CPA. You're going to have to go out there and...
Oh, yeah, they aren't cheap.
Yeah, well, but not only that, but you're going to probably need an accountant unless you have an accounting background. Run something like QuickBooks so that you can get everything really easy, really accessible.
Now they've altered their thing a little bit. Well, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But
I use a spreadsheet
have a accounting type program that you can use, and make sure that you track everything. Make sure that
oh God, yes.
The money coming in, the money going out. When you have a POS system, when you get to that point in a POS system, you want something that's going to track every single thing you sell, so you can see it where you're going. If you don't have that business kind of mind, or if you sit back and you say, you know what, I can't get that deep into the business. I just want to be the guy out there selling, and I want to own a GameStop, or I want a card shop that is just going to sell shops and I'm not going to worry about the rest and it'll just fall where it is, you're going to fail. It's going to happen.
And if and this really comes down to scale, like, and this is where you save nickels and dimes. Like when I open this one, all my display cases found them on Facebook and Craigslist. I got lucky as crap. The college in Lansing, was it Westman? Whatever, they were shutting down the law school because it was right after COVID. And like, we don't need this extra law. They weren't shutting down the law school; they're shutting down the libraries. And I've got, what are they, 4 foot by 7 foot shelving units upstairs? Got those for $10 a unit.
Oh, no, we did the same thing except ours were Blockbusters. We bought out closing down Blockbusters, and we bought so much of their racking that we would store it underneath one of our stores, and we had 4 or 5 stores worth of racking. And that's the way to do it. Pegboard, or not the slat board, the slat wall.
Yeah,
slat wall's
$30, $40 a 4x8. That's what I was paying for mine.
new.
Yeah, again for Menards.
Wow, and that's good.
Well, the color, if you're gonna get black or gray or any of those, or brown, they're like 50 plus. I'm like, what's cheap? I'm like, white. I guess the white.
There you go.
Wall.
And that's what don't expect your store to look beautiful day one. It's not gonna happen.
I mean, if you have the money, yes, but I'm saying it's the way like I look at it when I buy a house. Like, oh, I'm gonna run a Goodwill, get my furniture. I can upgrade my furniture. I can upgrade my display cases. Like, so like the tables you're looking at here. These are nice wood 6-foot folding tables. We got these for $10 a pop. Insane. We got the chairs, and I think I bought like 20, 30 of these tables. I mean, I knew I could only fit 9 or 10 down here in the play space, but like, yeah, I'm thinking big. I got lucky on so many levels. So like the law school library is closing because we've got what, like 15, 16? No, we got 3, 7. We have 16 of those sections of shelving upstairs.
Right.
I've got 6 in my other stores, so we got about 25 of those.
So the key at the end of the day is scrounge this stuff. Go out and look for them on Craigslist or eBay or places that are closing down.
When you got a phone, we've got those nice RPG tables over there. When I was taking the dog here to training over in Howell, took it for like over a year. And I kept driving by the board game cafe. It was closed, and I kept seeing like then a for rent sign went up in there. I'm like, and I stopped in and I looked, and they still had these old cube shelves in there with some games.
Yep.
So I called the number. I'm like, hey, what's up with that space that says board games? Oh, you looking around? I'm like, no. I'm like, there's still stuff in there. And she's like, oh yeah, they left all kinds of crap. So I rolled over there one day. I think we had already opened the store, and I'm like, we got 6 of those game tables, 3 of these 4x4 cubes, and probably 200-300 board games I had in the library. It was a board game cafe, and I think I paid $1,500 for them. But 2 of those RPG tables were still in the box.
Yeah, and
they sell for $600 each.
Right, and that's the best way to do these things is make sure that you're comfortable going out there, and don't expect to go out day one and buy everything brand new, because if you do, your opening costs are going to double. When we opened,
because I looked at new before I bought used. A 72-inch display case by 30. You're looking at $500-$600 minimum.
Well, when I was with Play and Trade, we were a franchisor, and so we would franchise Play and Trades to people, and they had to buy our setup. They had to buy specific, shelves and fixtures and everything else. Mm-hmm. And our standard setup for a store was $450,000.
Would that include inventory?
No.
Yeah, see.
No, that's just fixtures, tile, everything in the stores, because we went out and we had all this stuff custom made, and the stores looked amazing when they were done. They were absolutely beautiful. But we spent 6 months picking out, the colors of each particular fixture and what we
Yes,
wanted on the
that's
walls.
just over-
And again, those are things that you can do down the road. If you want a particular fixture or color on a wall, learn how to paint.
Oh no, God, yeah. The more you do yourself, the less money you save.
I think it was the fifth store that we opened. We had this. Our color schemes were black, gray, and this like neon green, and we had the back wall as neon green. Well, I wanted a little bit something to it. So my partners and I sat there one day and just kind of took paintbrushes with black paint and just kind of sprayed it along the back to give it this,
Splotchy.
this look, this Jackson Pollock kind of look on the back wall. And, by our 10th store, it started looking better. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was better. But those are the kind of things that you can do on your own. Is you can go out there and you can always paint a wall. It's going to cost you, $30 for 2 gallons of paint and to go paint a wall. Trying to go out and buying all brand new fixtures and brand new racking and those kind of things is just going to kill your budget. So find those items.
Right, like, I mean, just going off like my upstairs, I got 8 display cases and 2 register spaces. I may have paid 100, 150 per case. So, let's
Right.
go with that 150. I got 8. So I spent, it's 300 times 4 or whatever. I spent $1,200 on my display cases. If I were to buy all those new, you're gonna have $4,000 minimum.
Oh yeah, easy.
My main register case, a thrift store was closing, and I rolled up there. It was an old diaper change table. Once I stripped all the hardware off it,
Right.
paid $40 for it. My 6-foot customer service desk, I got that for $80 in the same place.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things when you're looking to open a store that you're going to have to do. Once you've got it in your mind that, hey, I am going to open a game store, being video games, board games, card games, whatever it is, you've got to start gathering pieces, and then you've got to go look for a location. Your location, depending if you want play space. You want play space, you're going to be looking at anything over 1,500 square feet. You probably want 2,000 square feet.
Well, I think that comes down to market, like where we're at. You can, I think you pull off, if you're not wanting to sit more like 12, 16 people, you probably pull off 1,500.
Oh, you can. But you're also limiting yourself to, in that location, you're limiting yourself to, 12, 15 people.
And again, then you have to ask yourself, like, okay, this is my game store. How do I want to make my money? And by that I mean, like if you're going to do online heavy,
Right.
then you may need a back room to store stuff and a shipping station and all this stuff.
Right.
So you're like, oh, hey man, I'm gonna do a lot of singles online. Well, let's say you're in a smaller, like we're in a smaller market. We got like 10, 12,000 people live in town. So I don't need all this play space. We rarely fill it up, but we just have it because we have it.
We've been close a couple of times.
Right, but I've also got like a 400 or 500 square foot
Yeah.
card room with like
How big's this space?
I believe this is probably
No, the whole building.
God over 3,000
Okay. So it's a larger space than
most stores.
than most stores. So a 2,000 square foot space would give you plenty of playroom plus plenty of display space. And then you got to look at the rent on those things. Typical rent for us, when I had the game stores, were, on the low end we were paying 13, on our highest volume store and our highest we were paying 28.
What was your very first one?
Our very first store, we were paying $1,000 a month
Plus utilities.
plus utilities.
Triple N.
No, triple net was all in. So all in, we were at.
See, and this is where you start getting into the stupid stuff. So like you roll, hey, $1,000 a month for that. You're like, oh, that's great. But then what you don't know is like because the triple N leases, you can have cam fees. Our second store, space is not huge, and we were looking. a guy that had come in, he owned a couple buildings there. He's like, oh, hey, we got a spot over here. It was right on the main drag next to Little Caesars. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll go over there, look at it. Nice space, big old freaking rectangle. But he's like, oh, yeah, taxes and cam fees and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he quotes me a price, and I'm like, and then but by that time, I know, like, does it include all this stuff? He's like, oh, no, that's extra.
Right.
Well, I'm like, okay. And for some reason, I couldn't drag an answer. I'm like, well, how much would that run me a month then, basically? Because he came to me. I mean, if I was looking, and I'm not going to say it was, all right, I was kind of dickish to him. But it's like, you come into our store and buy stuff. You're offering me this. And I knew he was offering me a better rate than what Little Caesars and other places are getting for comparable spaces. Because he's a nerd and he must be nice. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's nice. I think you want like $9.50 a month for the space. But it's like, all this other stuff. You know, and you'll find out, like, I think he told me something like the entire space, like 25 grand a year. The entire building was like 25, 30 grand a year in taxes. Because it was right there on the main drag. I'm like, well, what cut of that is, well, we'll figure it. Like, no, I don't want you to figure it out.
So for those of us who don't know, what is triple net?
Triple net is taxes, cams, and
The rent itself, right?
no, something else. I'm sorry, I'm blanking at this point in time. But basically, what it is it's all the extra fees that, so maintenance on the location, maintenance for like your gardens on the outside,
Well,
all
that's
your
cam fees, community maintenance.
cam fees, taxes, or any just kind of fees that they have for the area. And so those things do, depending on the time of year, they change. You know, if you live in somewhere that snows, you know, a lot of times they'll plow your driveway and you're going to get a...
But and I think, like, you know, I see a listing online for something. Oh, hey, man, what's this spot? And they're telling you, like, $1,000 a month, triple in. That's not counting those other fees.
Right, right. So they'll give you, a lot of times you'll also see a dollar a square foot, you know.
It's per year, most. Like, if it says $12 a square foot, that means it's 1,000 square feet, you're paying $1,000 a month.
Right. But then it'll say plus triple net. And so be really careful what you're looking for, you know, or what you're signing into. The other thing is, how long are you going to sign a location? How
a lot of places will be nice to you. I mean, if you're really lucky, you can get, like, I've done this with all three of my locations. I'll sign a 1 year, like, no crap lease with options.
And that's great. If you're going for
Strip malls and
a
stuff.
strip mall or
3,
doing
5,
something
10
else,
years.
you're doing 3 to 5 years usually is what you're going for. And if your store fails, we had a store who failed.
The fees are, I mean, if you're lucky, it's only 5 or 10% of remaining rent.
Well,
lucky.
they were quite adamant that we were going to pay out until they could rent the place out again. That we were paying the full rent, and we got stuck doing that. And so, you know, we're paying $1,600 a month for something that we didn't have open.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you're, you know, if you're running a single store and your store fails and you've got a 5-year lease and you're a year and a half into it, you're either filing bankruptcy or you're paying whatever your rent was for another 3.5 years. So be really careful about what you're signing and what you're getting into.
Right, and because that's the thing. And me personally, I love static numbers. The more things I know that are going to cost every month, the better, because then you can factor in overhead and your stuff. Like, you know, my rent here, I pay X dollars a month. It's that much until the end of next year if there's a percentage increase, but that's normally factored or capped into your lease, like a 3 to 5% increase per year, blah blah blah. So when you roll into these places, you're like, oh, $1,000 a month for that. That's a great spot, but you didn't read the fine print, and it's like, okay, even with triple with cam, because cam fees are, if you're nice, they know what they're paying for all that stuff in the year, and they'll divide it by 12 for you. So you're like, oh, I'm paying $1,500 a month. Okay, that's great. But you know, you're paying $1,200 a month this month, and 13, and then all of a sudden winter comes and natural gas. Well, no, not, and then the plowing fees and the winter taxes hit. You're like, oh, you owe us $2,000. You're like, what? And then you're screwed. Though there is a benefit to signing longer leases, they'll normally factor in more. You know, maybe you'll get a better rate, or they'll limit
Right.
the percentage at which your
Right.
rent goes up.
Triple net are property taxes, insurance premiums, and maintenance fees. That's what triple net is.
Now, but then the insurance, I guess this comes down to locality, because a lot of times the insurance is pretty much on you.
There's difference. There's insurance on the building,
And insurance on
and then
the
there's the
building.
insurance that you need
On liability.
on liability. So yeah, the other thing to take a look at is seasonality. I mean, if you have a decent sized space, what's it going to take to heat or cool that space? Because that space has got to be comfortable for people to be in, and you know, if you're going in and you're in you've got a tepid kind of summer, and you're like, oh, I don't need AC, and everything's all good, but then it snows in the wintertime, and you're looking at all the bills in the summer, and you're like, oh, my electric bill's $350, it's all good. All of a sudden, with heat, you're going into the $500-$600 range.
Yeah, the gas price jump. You're like, what the hell?
Right, and so there's a lot of those little bills that you need to think of, and you have to plan for.
And I don't know how other places, but like where I'm at, the utility company, I do the same for my house as I do my business. But they'll do the budget plan thing where they take your last 12 months divided by 12.
Yeah.
They don't do that for businesses.
No,
Because and the same thing with internet. I essentially pay for the same service speed-wise for my store as I do at home.
I'm sorry.
But my home's like $40-$50 a month, but my store's like 120.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Your speed sucks here.
And the home is so much better.
Well, I'm all right. I'll say the speed I get at the store is not awful when it works,
Right.
but it's not like they're going to give me credits for the days it's not working
Right.
or sucking.
So these are all things that you have to put into a business plan, and kind of, you know, what you're going to be spending on a monthly basis. And then are you going to hire an employee? Or are you going to be open just 5 days a week? And are you going to work those 5 days a week? You know, you opened a store. Do you want to play in games? If you have play space, well, you're not going to have an opportunity if you're going to be the only owner, and you're not going to hire any employees. If you do hire an employee, you've got to look at, oh, I've got to do this. Then I've got to, you know, get some kind of payroll system going. And because you've got to be able to take out taxes, you have to pay payroll taxes. You've got, and then you, depending on the state that you're in, you have sales tax, or do you have, you know, the business tax itself. These are all little things that you have to think of depending on the area that you're in.
Because like stupid simple example. Let's say you're just paying $10 an hour. You're actually probably paying between 11 and 12, depending on like what your contribution for Social Security, for unemployment tax,
Right.
for this and that. Because normally, I mean, you think, oh, I pay this guy $10 an hour, all that stuff comes out of his. No, you pay a percentage too.
Right.
It costs you more than $10 an hour to pay the employee.
Right.
So you got to factor that in. So like, what do you? I'm willing to pay someone 18. Good, pay him 15. Because by the time you're done with all your other stuff,
Right.
you know, you have to other stuff. You gotta
And
factor.
so
Triple N's everywhere.
these things are
That's government.
when you're looking at the business, you know, talk to either a CPA or an accountant.
Or there's lawyers that specialize. in
Lawyers
startup
that specialize these things as well, depending on how much money you want to spend.
Yeah, but the lawyer will cost you probably at least a couple grand, and the accountants may not cost you nothing if you sign on with them, but they may charge you for a consulting fee if you don't
Right.
sign up with them.
But at least know what you're going to be paying going into these things, because if you go in blind, you are gonna
Blindsided.
get absolutely blindsided. And you know, when it comes to 3 months or 6 months worth of business expenses, you're also looking at inventory. You're looking at $50,000.
Yeah, we
That-
didn't even talk about inventory.
Yeah, but we can do that next time.
Yeah.
Almost out of time this time.
Right.
So don't have too much fun with that. Digest it, and maybe we'll talk about inventory next time. We need a
Sorry,
catchphrase exit.
I wasn't trying to cut you there.
No, you're all good, guys. If you have questions, you have concerns, let us know, comment, and we'll try to address those things on our next